Welcome to More Details, Please, with your hosts Emmanuel and Angela Williams, where we dive deeper into conversations with visionary entrepreneurs to discover what it takes to turn passion into purpose. Listen to real-world stories from self-starters and trailblazers, and discover strategies and innovations shaping a greener future. Whether you are a seasoned business person or just starting out, let this be your go-to resource for inspiration and actionable tips for success. Join us now as we create a brighter, greener future together.
Hello and welcome to More Details, Please. I'm Angela Williams.
And I am Emmanuel Williams.
And welcome back to our show. So this season, we're exploring innovation and technology. So we're looking at how new ways of thinking and the tools we use come together to shape how we work and lead.
Well, I want to always say thank you to our guests who are watching. And this is a podcast is straight from our heart. We are entrepreneurs at heart. And we love mentoring, we love teaching, and we wanted to start this podcast because entrepreneurs are a unique species, I would say. We're always in a process of evolving and developing and growing because every day we got to get out and we got to hunt for our food. And that is a unique position to be in, but it's a great position to be in because a lot of times we discover things about ourselves that we really didn't know. So this podcast is really about talking with entrepreneurs, innovation, and how we can use that innovation to help make entrepreneurs a better entrepreneur and make the world a better place.
Yep. And today we're talking about the innovation mindset, designing with people, not just for them. And I'm really excited to welcome our guest, Jenny Brown. She's the CEO and founder of Dutton Farms, Inc., whose work shows that it shows what innovation looks like. I mean, you can really see what it is all about when people are truly at the center of what you do and what you create. So we're looking forward to that conversation in a bit. But for now, let's dive into it deeper.
Well, when I thought about this topic, it was really interesting to me because innovation is a big part of our culture, the society that we live in, and it has such a great influence on so many people. And I think the foundation of this relationship, from my perspective, is innovation with intention. You know, what is the intention? What is the person who is innovating intention behind innovation? And just to understand what innovation is a process. It's a process of taking certain things, making it better for the good of all people. And that's the reason why I say intention is really interesting because in the world and the society that we're living in, we're innovating for profit. Now think about that. Innovation for profit. And what that does is it creates an intention based on an egoic mindset as opposed to innovating for the good of all humanity. So when you talk about innovation for profit, that is a great subject that I would like to get into. And that's the reason why I'm just really excited about our guests that we have coming on, because they are definitely innovating in a way that is going to create good in the world and do good by people. And I think those intentions is the really, really important intention when it comes to innovation.
So I mentioned the innovation mindset, and I think it's worthy of us diving deeper and understanding what that is. So it's less about new technology and it's more about how you see the world. It's noticing what's missing, where things aren't quite working, and being curious enough to ask, could this be better? See, at Detail Experts, we knew washing cars with water wasn't quite working because it was wasting our precious resource, water, which is a big problem in the car washing industry. So we focused on steam technology for a more eco-friendly clean. Now, could this be done better? I love that because it shifts innovation away from being this big, intimidating, shiny thing, but instead it brings innovation to something that can become a breakthrough. Right, Emmanuel?
Yeah, I mean, that's what our whole business model has been successful for innovation. We have been able to come up with a way to innovate the car washing industry that has been around for many, many, many years in a way that it had not been done before. And it didn't come from an innovation place of somebody who was in the industry, who understood the industry. It came from the mindset of an 8-year-old boy. Now think about that. That innovation, how a kid, 8 years old, looked at a car wash process. Oh, no, it wasn't even a car wash. It was a car driving down the street. And this little guy said, Dad, what if we start cleaning cars with steam? Now, to give you a little bit of background on that, I'm a power plant engineer. And I've always been around boilers and steamers and turbines and things of that nature. So he's been around them as well. But and I'm an entrepreneur by trade as well. I mean, me and my son, our son, we used to always do all the sell balloons, flowers, toy, whatever. We did entrepreneur stuff. But his little mind was just ticking, sitting on the porch, eating his popsicle, little legs kicking. And he said, Dad, what if we start cleaning cars with steam? That's innovation. The key part to the innovation is your ability to be present and to create space and to create quietness and silence so that innovation can come through you into what you do. And innovation is a process of making things better, looking at a situation, coming up with little bitty adjustments to make it better for the good of humanity.
So you think about that, an 8-year-old, this situation gave voice and a voice that deserved to be heard. And he was heard. And here we are 25 years later using that concept to help individuals with their needs, providing an eco friendly clean. What's even more exciting, if you think about it, it takes paying attention. And in this case, paying attention to an 8-year-old, but listening and being open to rethinking systems that we've already used before. We've already gotten these systems in place, but hey, we're looking for something else. So once you have that mindset, technology becomes a support, not the starting point.
I want to go a little bit back to innovation for profit because I think that the society that we're living in and the culture and the way that we communicate with each other with social media, phones, and things of that nature. Innovation for profit is a very powerful subconscious way of getting into our subconscious mind and convincing people to do things and behave in ways where they don't even realize why they're doing what they're doing. For an example, you take commercials, you take social media. It's not by coincidence that people, if you click on a link, then a person will get paid. Why? It's because they want your attention. Why do they want your attention? It's because when you bring something, your attention to something, you bringing something that is very, very valuable that you don't even realize to that situation. And that value is your subconscious mind. You're opening yourself up to be able to be programmed in a way where you didn't even really realize that you was programmed. And it's not by coincidence that you'll see a Red Lobster commercial on TV at night. That's why they have all of this delicious food. And then the next thing you know, that Thursday you at Red Lobster. You think, oh, I just wanted some Red Lobster. No, you was programmed. So the power of innovation through profit is very, very important because it is really getting to the subconscious mind and controlling and programming and reprogramming the subconscious mind. And that is the worst situation as a society and as a culture you want to be in because now you're talking about walking around like robots where you're there as the ego mindset, but subconscious, but your awareness and your presence is not. And that is, I think, the most important humane thing that needs to be a part of innovation is that you got to have the creative innovation side, but you got to have the humanity side because the innovation can be like a genie in a bottle. And a lot of times if that genie get out of the bottle, it can cause way more destruction than good.
How your intentions turn into action kind of follows that example. So, how we design solutions with people instead of just for them is important because innovation isn't just about ideas. It's the choices that we make, the systems we create, and the people we include in the process is what makes innovation great. And when people are part of the design from the beginning, the results tend to be more practical, more trusted, and more successful.
Yes, and in the process of innovating with people, a couple of examples. You look at Ford Motor Company. Ford, not only did he come up with the assembly line, but he came up with something that everybody can participate in, everybody can benefit from, everybody can profit from. When you're talking about um, innovation when it comes to allowing people to be a part of that innovation. We do business with a lot of municipalities and we do a business with a lot of government agencies. And it's really interesting because when you have people in the city who benefit in ways where there's water, where the garbage has to be picked up, where you have to get your mail, all of these things, services that is required, that required innovation in a municipality, in a government entity, you can really see how collective group works together in a way where it benefits all. And I think that's where you can really get the solutions to the answers to the questions from the people that's actually in that environment and participating in that environment.
So, in that way, we're co creating. So, innovation works best when people, employees, franchise owners, customers, communities are all a part of the conversation. So, some tips to turning innovation into action. Innovation is real when it helps people in everyday ways. So, creating something that's not exactly solving a problem would not be innovation. Asking people what they need instead of deciding for them. So, really, focus groups, asking individuals what they need or what do you think about this, etc. That will create the best innovation. Inclusion that leads to better outcomes and stronger trust. So when you're designing something new for your employees, why not ask them, what do you think? What problems are you having? How can this help you? Before you just create that solution and using tools that support people, not replace them. We talk a lot about AI and what that's going to replace, etc. In reality, it actually works along with emotional intelligence. It works along with the people that are involved. So what we talked about a lot in the past is that our mindset and action is important. And there is one idea that connects the two. And the difference between designing for people and designing with them is that designing for people usually comes with intentions, as Emmanuel mentioned earlier, but it can also come with a lot of assumptions.
Well, I thought about this as well, designing innovation for people who have disabilities. And we look at that as a set aside group of people that have certain requirements in order for them to live in the culture and society that we are living in. And when I looked up the word disable, that means to stop, right? And one of the most important things that we have done that we don't even realize is our ability to stop thinking. See, when you stop thinking and you thinking too much, then your disability, your ability to be disabled is you become a part of your ego. And if you are a part of your ego, and if you are in a process of not being able to shut your mind off to have that awareness to who you are as a part of your thinking, then you're disabled. And so, yes, when we deal with disability and people that has disabilities, I look at them as people that has certain needs in order to exist, just like maybe they may need a wheelchair or they may need to be able to get up the stairs. And these are just people. They're not disabled. They're not a different group of people. But I would just say we as a culture in itself, because we are so caught up and so trapped in our ego thoughts and so attached to our ego attachment, that we lost ourselves. Would you say that that's of this being disabled? I don't know. It's just a question.
I'll call it special abilities instead of using dis at all. Special abilities is something that we all have in one way or another. It's just like on a spectrum, right? It's on a range. So designing with people means you slow down a bit. You listen more and you be more willing to adjust when things don't look like what you expected. It also changes what success looks like. You're not just asking, does this work? You're asking, does this actually help? And when people are part of the process, trust builds faster and solutions tend to last longer. So some of the most meaningful innovations doesn't come from tech companies. They come from thoughts and that co-creation with people.
Well, this is another thing about innovation and creating, co-creating with people is in leadership. It's very important for the leader to set the tone for the environment. Because if you have field leaders, you have supervisors, and then you have the workforce that look up to them, it's very important for them to set the tone. And one of the things, so I think one of the biggest reason why our company has become so successful is because we set a tone and we implement core values. It is the way we interact with our team members. It's the way that we treat our team members. It's the way they treat each other. It's the expectation of how to work together to get along. And I think those environments that is created from those core values and it trickles down inside of the culture in terms of how people act and behave towards each other and how they feel safe, how they feel secure, how they feel protected. I think that is a big part of creating a environment where innovation can thrive because the key part of innovation is creativity. And when you say, well, where do creativity come from? Well, creativity comes from you. Creativity is a field in which we are all connected to. Einstein said he was more creative when he wasn't thinking. That's when all of his creativity came, his innovation came, when he was not thinking. And so I just want our listening audience to realize that when we're talking about creativity, we're not talking about something that's abstract. We're talking about something that is an intricate part of who you are. We're talking about an intricate part of how you can tap into that creativity. And we all have this creativity because we're all constantly creating in everything that we do because creativity is a feel, is an energy frequency, is a vibration. But the key thing is you have to ask yourself, what is it that is blocking you from connecting to your creativity? Therefore, you can innovate.
Yeah, so innovation comes from people who are paying attention to real life, to real families and communities, and systems that weren't built with everyone in mind. And that's why we're excited to welcome Jenny Brown, CEO and founder of Dutton Farms, and the co founder of Everybody Inc. So, Jenny,
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
God, we're so happy to have you. Now, we know that work is a perfect example of designing with people with you, right? Not just for them, but that awareness and what gives you social entrepreneurship. So, welcome again to the show and a
Thank
little bit
you.
more. So, you spent about 22 decades, so 20 years, advocating for the rights and equal opportunities for adults with developmental disabilities. So, supporting people in work, education, community life, and beyond. So, welcome. Tell us about your work, Jenny.
Yeah, super glad to be here. Thank you for allowing me the chance to share our story and spread our message. We founded Dutton Farm in 2010, but before that, I grew up in a household where inclusion was just a regular part of my life. I have a sister who's a little bit older than me who has Down syndrome, and she's by far the best person I've ever known. The character that we're missing from our society, she easily embodies. And I've just seen her as a leader, as a mentor, and such a good person. Upon graduation of high school, though, the trajectory of my life versus her life looked drastically different. So before that, my sister would come to my basketball games with all of her friends. I would go to her cheer meets with all of my friends, and we would be together in my home growing up, and her friends interacting with my friends and learning from each other. And it kind of was this perfect little ecosystem of what inclusion is supposed to look like. But then when I kind of seamlessly transitioned into adulthood and went into the real world, the opportunities that were afforded me because I didn't have Down syndrome were not afforded to her. So she couldn't enroll in college. There wasn't any opportunity for her to become employed. There were transportation barriers. She couldn't get into her community. And I got my bachelor's, but it got to the point where I decided, along with my family, to launch a nonprofit that provided meaningful work for individuals with disabilities. And what we didn't count on was that what we thought was just going to be a small family run kind of thing. And then I would go back and pursue my career after I got her set up with meaningful things to do every day. How many other families were in the same predicament? And so 5 families turned into 20, turned into 50, turned into 100, turned into 150 in multiple locations. And the more we grew, the longer our waiting lists became. And we really had to figure out uh, how to put our business hat on and act like entrepreneurs so that the organization would be sustainable. And so there's a lot of cross disciplines between, or there should be, between business and nonprofit. And I started to understand that you could use the power of business principles to solve complex social problems. And that really, in and of itself, is the heart of social entrepreneurship.
That's major. And what's so interesting, Detail Experts started off as a social franchise. And it was for that reason we wanted to meet a specific need, giving individuals who would not normally have the opportunity to own a business, teaching them those basic business skills, et cetera. It transferred into helping those individuals learn those business skills so that they could own a business in the future if that was their choice. So it's really interesting that we have those common paths. What advice would you give someone interested in social entrepreneurship? Because I did hear you say you had to use those business principles to make sure it was sustainable.
Yes, so social entrepreneurship in general is hard. Uh, People listening, and both of you, of course, know it's not for the faint of heart. You've got to be resilient. You've got to have some grit, some moxie, and not be intimidated by closed doors or challenging seasons. Winter can't last forever, but you've got to have the tools to survive those winters because they're a part of the journey. About 2016, I would say, when social entrepreneurship really became real to me, there were individuals that I was working with that really wanted a job, and I was unable to find a job in the private sector. And as I was discouraged and frustrated, I recognized that I was this champion for inclusive employment, yet I didn't have anyone on my payroll that had a developmental disability. I was not practicing what I was preaching. So I put my thoughts together and decided to launch a bath and body company. And the purpose of this bath and body company was to hire people that was on the bottom of everybody else's list, that everybody else overlooked and said, yeah, not hiring that person. And I was going to hire those individuals and show that a business could be profitable while also accomplishing social good. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I wanted that to be just an example. And so I think it's really important when you get into social entrepreneurship, it starts not because you have all of the right answers and the fancy business plan, but because there's something you really, truly care about in your heart and soul. Maybe it's human trafficking, and maybe it's disability, or, maybe it's children who are experiencing foster care. Whatever that is, make sure it's genuinely something that you care about and not a marketing ploy or an add-on because it's the new trendy thing to do. It's really got to be something that you genuinely care about. Otherwise, you won't have staying power when the going gets tough.
Yeah. Perseverance comes up a lot in our podcast. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced along the way and what helped you keep going?
So, COVID was hard. As an organization, we had just started to figure out like scalability, and we had about 40 people employed at that time through our nonprofit. So we would partner with businesses in the private sector, and we would act as kind of like a staffing agency. And the pipeline of talent that we had was individuals with developmental disabilities. So we had worked really hard to establish all of these jobs and poured an enormous amount of resources into that. And overnight, all of that disappeared. And everything we had worked to build for, was it over 10 years seemed to just slip between our fingers. And I was really discouraged at the time. And I thought, well, I guess I got to go do something else now. And my dad, growing up in a family with a lot of siblings, and we're just taught to be independent and resilient. And he's like, well, Becca can't go reinvent herself. So I didn't realize you were a quitter. I didn't think I raised quitters in this family, but okay, apparently I was wrong. So I'll talk to Michelle, which is my mom. We'll figure out a different plan. So as difficult as that was, I think it's important to have people in your life that don't tell you what you want to hear when you're in kind of a place where you're feeling sorry for yourself. But you have people in your life that are able to force you to keep your chin up and to see the bright side and to fight through it, because sometimes you don't have the moxie in yourself and you need somebody to tell you the truth when you don't want to hear it. So I think that's really important. I think it's also really important to just maintain and manage expectations of team members that you bring along. I think that when you're an entrepreneur, you're so focused on the end goal, and then you don't expect like a betrayal or someone that you thought was bought in and then you realize wasn't, and then you're dealing with the emotional recovery of that, and it takes a little bit to bounce back. So I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to kind of temper and manage those expectations for team members and to know who your inner circle is that you can count on through thick and thin, and make sure that you keep that circle tight.
Well, Jenny, I want to say thank you.
That was heartfelt, Jenny.
I
I felt
I
all of that.
I really want to say thank you
Then you're a real entrepreneur.
because you are a light, you're young, and we
I'm
really
not young.
need people like you. We really need people like you in this world, and you don't realize the impact of how many people that you've had an impact on in their life.
Thank you.
And I just think that you are, from what I'm feeling, and the passion and the love that you have for your sister, and what propelled you to do something like this for those people who needed this opportunity. That is really what life is all about. And that's where the struggle, but that's where the beauty is. That's where the blessings are. That's where the peace and the joy,
You don't
is.
appreciate the blessings without the struggle, right?
Absolutely.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. And so I just want to encourage you to continue to do what you're doing, because it's definitely really needed in a time that we're living in.
Thank you. Thank you for that encouragement. It's greatly appreciated.
So at Dutton Farms, you clearly do things differently. Inclusion isn't an add-on. It's something when we talk about inclusion, it's in that DEI word. So it's part of a program from the very beginning, because you explained your why, and your sister being the source of that why. But I would say your sister was a catalyst, but it was your whole family. It's kind of the culture that you were brought up in. And it feels very much like you're designing with people, not just for them. Is that fair to say?
Definitely. I think it's important for me to point out that early on when we first started Dutton Farm, I was very young, in my early 20s. And what was really special and different and unique about how Dutton Farm evolved is the individuals in the program, because I didn't have a business plan. These individuals with disabilities that most people wouldn't ever assume could contribute anything became my mentors. And I learned from them what the community really needed. I think oftentimes we come in thinking we have the answer and want to be the hero in the story, and making assumptions. And so they kind of showed me what was needed. And that's how programs kind of got stood up, because of the individuals we were serving, what issues they were facing in real time.
So, how do you design programs that build someone's independence over time? What do you focus on? Because the first thing I thought about is my younger brother, Marcus, who had special abilities. And it was so interesting because after he had aged out of the normal school program, it was like, what does he do next? So, how do you help somebody build that independence?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers to it. I think first and I always tell my team this and any new hires, you assume competence always. And so let someone tell you if there's something that they need help with, but don't automatically assume you need to do something for somebody. And making sure that we don't view individuals with special abilities with any kind of pity. And if you have any experience with somebody with a disability, you go from maybe feeling sorry for someone to feeling kinship and brother sisterhood with someone, and they become a friend and equal. And then eventually you see their, as a person of faith, like they're the spiritual giants. They are my mentors and my teachers. And that journey is, I think, really important because you have to believe in their ability to contribute back to society because society prioritizes certain skills and abilities over others. And we see the outcomes of that. There's not some of the really necessary character attributes woven into the fabric of our society. And my sister and others just kind of naturally have um, honesty and the respect for others and no guile and can't think like in a sinister gossipy way. And I think that's really important to see the value first but then provide opportunity. It's amazing how skills emerge when they're needed. And so if you're always trying to do for somebody instead of giving them the opportunity to try, fail, and figure it out, then they're never going to be able to reach their potential. So those are just a couple of things that we do as we provide opportunity for the individuals we serve.
Well, Angela and I was talking about what are some of the characters and characteristics of an innovative mindset. And in listening to you, a couple of things, you've checked off some of those boxes big time. Thinking outside the box, being able to think outside the box, being inclusive, involving everybody into the process, always looking at the situation from the glass is half full as opposed to half empty from a positive perspective and just being generosity
Mm.
and not being so attached to your ego attachments where nobody can tell you anything and you can't learn from anybody because you feel like you know everything. And those ingredients are ingredients of a person that has great quality a great quality innovation mindset. And so in listening to you and in listening to your story and your passion, I think you are definitely heading in the right direction.
Thank you. I love that you say that about generosity. I think you can't be a leader if you don't have a generous mindset. You should be so excited to see somebody get a promotion or a raise or want to give bonuses. And I think that's a absolute non-negotiable for leadership.
Definitely. So talk us through because you mentioned something that these you give these individuals real job skills, so they are in the real world with a job. So talk us through how you connect people with real opportunities, not just programs.
Yeah, so we have kind of a pipeline of services, and not everyone goes linear through each program, but we have what's called our skill building program. And within our skill building program, we have a life skills, a socialization, a horticulture, an art program, a community involvement program. And within these services, individuals are able to learn soft skills like teamwork, conflict resolution, being patient, getting along with coworkers. And from there, oftentimes individuals start to, and their family, believe in themselves where maybe they entered the program and thinking, like, employment's never an option for me. That's for those people over there. I would never be able to have a job. And maybe after a year or two in, they start thinking, like, hey, that person got a job. That was my friend. I want a job too. And then they'll move into what's called our job development programming. And that is kind of really narrowing in on harder skills that are needed for a certain job that they want. What do they like to do? What are they good at? Exploring their gifts and then getting exposed to different career opportunities and then job readiness stuff. How do you build a resume? How do you get through an interview? What do you wear to work? Etiquette, things like that. And then the job development, job search part happens. And so our job developer spends a lot of time in the community building relationships in the small business community and then finding real talent shortages, real job openings that they can match the skills of the individuals in our program with a job opening, and then they bridge that gap to make sure it's actually adding value to the business. It's a dignified job that pays competitively in an inclusive environment with a good culture. And we never want to get in situations where there's a token job, a mascot type of employee. Like, we checked our diversity box. That's not what we're about. And we don't want to feed that narrative or enable that narrative. So we make sure they're actual real jobs that we connect people to. From there, the last kind of step in the continuum is our supported employment program. And those managers and directors make sure they provide follow-along services if there's a performance review, or if they need a job coach, or if they have kind of wraparound services that are needed to maintain their employment. And then they follow them through the duration of their time in the small business community or whatever employer they work for. Hopefully that's helpful.
Wow, that was
That
great.
was very helpful. And
That
in
was
fact,
great.
you just hit on several different things. So let's talk about the wraparound services, but not only for the support of a job coach or someone to make sure they got to work or et cetera. Let's talk about where systems and technology quietly do their job behind the scenes. So what kind of technology do you use to make people first services possible?
So we have several different systems. I'm a big believer in people, process, technology. If we bring in technology before people have the disciplines to measure, capture, record, document, the system doesn't work like it's supposed to. So we have a financial system. We have a billing system. So we're contracted through the state of Michigan, Department of Health and Human Services, through Medicaid. So we're a healthcare provider, and 75% of our budget is through Medicaid. So that means a lot of oversight. We're a highly regulated industry, a lot of audits. So documentation is key. We actually have to document every 15 minutes of service for every single individual in our program every single day. You can imagine the amount of data and we used to do this through paper. So you can imagine the shift as we move to digital systems-based record keeping through a national company called TheraP. And that allows us to not waste critical dollars that should be put in the mission preparing for an audit. Papers everywhere, going through records, trying to compile everything. What used to take days of work, now, because we have shifted to this system in digital record keeping and built the disciplines to have every single team member engage with TheraP, in a matter of 30 seconds, we get an audit request. We click the dates that are being requested from the state of Michigan. The records download. We attach it in a secure file and send it over. So that's been huge. And then we also have other stakeholders through either customers, sponsors, grantors, foundations, community partners. And that system is called Bloomerang. And it's like a customer CRM, relation management system. And that's the repository for all of our stakeholders that are not program participants. So we're able to capture all of the interactions with those stakeholders, make sure we never are double teaming somebody, and then updating those records so we really know which stakeholders we should be engaging with. Is that helpful?
Wow. That is phenomenal. But you said every 15 minutes. I mean, a long time ago when you used paper, I can't even imagine that you
Nightmare.
were. Yes.
Nightmare.
Thank goodness for tools. I mean, seconds, boom, date. Here you go.
It was a
I
big
love it.
shift over there. Yeah.
So, Jenny, how was you able to rebound from COVID? I know you have built a lot of good stuff going on prior to COVID. And then after COVID hit, how were you able to build a relationship with your sponsors and with your team members so that you guys can continue to move forward?
I learned quickly that the time to make friends is not when you need them. And we were able to thankfully lean on Congresswoman Slotkin. She was our congresswoman at the time. And we were left out of the CARES Act, individuals with disabilities. And direct care workers were not considered essential or healthcare workers. So this whole community was not included in the first CARE Act that deployed resources for protective equipment, protective gear, keeping everybody safe. And these are the individuals that are at high risk of mortality because of COVID, with comorbidities and dual diagnoses and things like that. So I was able to work with our development director. His name was Dariel, who was with us at the time, and he went to bat with Senator Slotkin and said, this is a forgotten population. She went to the Congress floor in Washington, D.C., and got individuals with disabilities included in the CARES Act. So I think leaning on people that you need, making sure that you're developing relationships always, because you never know when you're going to need to ask for something. So I always try to think about relationships and how I can add value, what I can contribute. So the time comes when I need a favor, there's currency there. And so that was huge. So that opened up a spigot of resources that allowed us to bring our team back. And the team members that we brought built a telehealth system. So we were able to engage and provide services virtually for, about 6 months. And then we opened back up incrementally. So we would only have about 20% of our program capacity operational, and people would take turns in person. And we did the 6 feet apart, the distance. And then if there was a COVID outbreak, we would close, move everybody to telehealth services, incrementally, slowly open back up. But because of the CARES Act and the employee retention credits and all of those resources, we had the financial strength to slowly open our doors safely.
Wow, that was a great story.
I know, I know.
It's
But
tough.
that was perseverance, and
Yeah.
nothing was going to stop you from achieving your goal. Besides that, your dad is like, "What? Quitter? Huh? Woo? Are you in this family? You must have been adopted." All right, so let's talk about this. We talk about mentorship a lot and how important it is to know when to step in and when to step back. So, how do you balance support while giving adults the space to make their own choice?
That's a great question, and it can be tricky. It's a very gray area. We believe very much in independence and protecting personal choice, and letting a vulnerable individual that often is high risk of being taken advantage of to be in the driver's seat of their day and their choices. And that's kind of baked into our trainings and our culture, and something that we really prioritize. But I guess it just depends on the person and the situation. When I'm talking about team members, it's hard to be a boss and a mentor because those lines can get blurred. But I like to mentor outside the organization for maybe somebody that wants to start something similar in a different part of the state, or somebody that wants to launch a new business and needs advice, and to walk alongside them a little bit, because that mission, even though it's not at Dutton Farm, expands when somebody else decides to take the leap and launch something else in a different part of the state. And so I mentor in that way as well. But in terms of the individuals that we serve, it's a minute by minute, hour by hour thing, because somebody may need assistance walking out to the bus, but then are independent in maybe their bowling league. And so you have to be really in tune with the person and ask questions and really build a relationship, so you know that person, so you know when to step in and when to take a step back. But we can tell pretty quickly when someone is, it feels good to say, I want to do purpose-driven work. But then when you're actually in it, it's easy to tell the real deal pretty quickly. And when someone makes it about themselves and they're trying to overly care for the individual that's in their group, and not step back and be background, I think just that's a toxic way to feel good about yourself.
We can tell that you have the passion. All right. Imani, did you have something?
No,
Okay.
I'm just really impressed on the commitment and the wealth of knowledge. And it kind of seems as if you know this whole program from like top to bottom, inside and out. And do you have a person that's working with you, or do you have like team members that work with you on your level in terms of the daily operation of it?
Yeah, so I have a senior leadership team. There is 5 for a finance department, an HR department, an operations department, a program department. So there's 100 employees. So underneath them, then we have managers. Then they'll oversee leads, and the leads oversee individuals providing direct service. So we've got that kind of organizational structure. And then I have above me about 15 board of directors that I report to. So there's a senator, a commissioner, a business leader, a parent, just a diverse group of people, and they govern our financial integrity and our strategic growth.
So where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
So we have our strategic compass, and I would like to be able to scale and build a scalable model without losing relational warmth and the family legacy that my parents intended, which means we would be able to pretty easily, and that's using that word loosely, launch in different counties where we're needed to stand up programs and get really good at standing up programs while finding a good way to preserve relational warmth. And I would like to also launch a missions department as we get really good at stewarding our resources, building kind of a war chest where maybe a natural disaster happens or there's a family in great need or it falls on hard times, that we have resources we can quickly deploy, whether it's local in a different county, in a different state, and we can send a team out to alleviate a need or like build something as small as building a wheelchair ramp to sending food and things like that. And that's something I've dreamt about for a long time. And I would love to be able to be so good at stewarding our resources that we have excess that we can deploy in different parts of the country.
And finally, if there's one thing you wish more organizations understood about supporting adults with special abilities, what would it be?
There's way more positive. I think people think disability, they think accommodations are expensive. More often than not, it's less than $500. They don't understand this idea of universal design. When you make an accommodation, it usually helps everyone, right? So like when you walk into the grocery store and the doors automatically open, that was originally built for folks in wheelchairs, but we all benefit from it. We all love to send text messages. Text message innovation started because someone was hearing impaired. So there's a lot of benefits that come, but also just as a team member and someone that's so excited to be a part of your team and impacts your culture in ways you couldn't even hope for. So just the benefits far outweigh maybe the necessary accommodations that you'll have to go through.
That is true, right on the money. And that is applicable for every single industry, probably every entrepreneur, et cetera. We just have to have an open mind. So, one simple shift in asking better questions before building anything is important. And another is inviting feedback early on in the process, not after everything's already decided, but really getting that feedback early on. But most important is being honest about what you don't know. That openness often leads to better ideas than trying to get it perfect the first time. We've been talking about innovation as a mindset, noticing what's missing and being open to rethink how things are done. Innovation really happens when people are involved from the start, not just brought in as an afterthought. Today's conversation reminds us of designing with people, not just for them. So you're designing something along with them, co-creating. It leads to work that is more inclusive, meaningful, and sustainable. So today we're talking to Jenny Brown, and we're so excited that she was here.
Well, Jenny, you really exemplify what we started out our show talking about, innovation with intention, as opposed to innovation for profit. And you are like the poster child for innovation with intentions to make the world a better place. So I'm just going to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. I'm thankful for your sister. I'm thankful for your dad
Her whole
and
family.
your whole family because you are a product of that family and we need you to continue to do what you're doing.
Awesome. So, whether you're building a business, a program, or a community, innovation starts with listening, observing, and creating space for people to be a part of the design. So, if you enjoyed this conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Share it with someone who's building work that matters. And always, thanks for tuning in. To more details, please. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to More Details, Please, presented by Emmanuel and Angela Williams from Detail Experts, the mobile steam cleaning company dedicated to protecting the planet. Be sure to subscribe to More Details, Please on your favorite podcast platform. You can also follow us on Facebook at Detail Experts and visit detailexperts.net. That's DetailExperts.net. We hope you've gained some valuable insights from our conversations today. Stay driven by curiosity, and we'll bring you more details next time.